Let me start by saying that I really like the new Star Wars characters. I mean, I like them for what they could have been. And I think that's the reason that these new movies have angered so many people. We want to like these new movies, but the writers seem to be too afraid to just tell an original story. They're trying so hard to play it safe that they don't realize we'll love whatever new stuff they show us. On the surface, A New Hope and The Force Awakens are basically the same movie. So much of the cinematography is nearly identical to the original film that it's easy to miss that the two stories are nothing alike. All the basic plot points and story beats are there, but once the nostalgia wears off, the differences become painfully obvious. I've seen a lot of really great videos dissecting every scene in The Last Jedi, and it's been pretty universally blamed for ruining the Star Wars franchise. There aren't as many videos critiquing The Force Awakens, however, when, in my opinion, it's done more damage to the Star Wars franchise than any other movie has. I think everyone can agree that The Last Jedi was a terrible misstep. It was more of a deconstruction than a continuation of a story. But therein lies the problem. There really was no story for him to continue. I think Rian Johnson recognized something that none of us did. He'd been tricked. Given the responsibility of telling an untellable story. This movie is nothing more than familiar scenarios and character types Jedi mind-tricking our brains into a state of nostalgic intoxication. I think Rian Johnson sat down to write The Last Jedi and realized how terribly written The Force Awakens was. What direction was he going to take? Rey already beat Kylo, Finn already beat Phasma, the map to Luke was a complete MacGuffin that served no significance to the story. Everyone becomes friends for no reason, and Rey's powers literally rewrite the rules of Star Wars. J.J. Abrams is the one that's responsible for creating the foundation of the new trilogy. How was Rian Johnson going to explain why Luke ran away to hide on an island, but left a map to find him? If he was going there to hide, then why leave a map? If he was going there to find something that would help defeat Snoke, then why leave a map if you're coming back anyway?
What are stories but mystery boxes?
I only really need a few scenes from The Force Awakens to show that nothing about the very first movie makes any sense. And I'm not some original trilogy diehard fan that has to compare every Star Wars movie to the first three. This video will focus on J.J. Abrams and the story and characters that he created in The Force Awakens. You've all heard of a plot device, right? If not, it's basically something that's put in a story to push the plot forward in a way that doesn't flow naturally or make sense in the story. A perfect example of this is in Justice League when Batman kills a parademon and the image of 3 mother boxes burns into the wall. It really makes no sense why that would happen, other than a cheap way to motivate Batman to round up the Justice League when there wouldn't have otherwise been any reason for him to do this. The Force Awakens actually does this with all 3 of the main characters, and plot devices are woven into the fabric of their story arcs and personalities. Without plot devices, Rey would still be collecting junk and waiting for her parents. Finn would be a normal and cooperative stormtrooper, and Kylo would have easily found the map to Luke in the first 10 minutes of the movie. Let's start with Rey, the character that literally rewrites all of the other films and the rules to the Star Wars universe. Rey was left on Jakku as a 5-year-old kid, and somehow everyone's overlooked that she was left with this guy, Unkar Plutt. And this is JJ's movie, so he can't blame this on anyone else. Why was Rey left with Unkar? Because she was sold to him, or she was left with him to look after. So why do they act like they've never seen each other before? Why is she living in the desert alone and not directly working for him? Why is Unkar so mean to her, and why don't they have some sort of relationship? Rey should definitely have some sort of friendly relationship with Unkar Plutt. He raised her since she was a child, and she's seen him several times a week for over a decade. So when he was trying to get her to give up BB-8, it should have been pretty easy. Hey Rey, it's your old pal Uncle Unkar. I've been looking all over for that BB droid. It's really important that I get it back. And Rey would say, oh yeah, of course. I have known you longer than any other person in the universe, and you are giving me like 3 months worth of food. No problem, here, take them. But that would stop the entire movie from happening. So her entire involvement from that point on is basically 3 mother boxes on the wall. And everything that happens after that has no chance of ever flowing naturally, because she never had any reason for not giving up BB-8, or for helping the Resistance, or hating Kylo, or wanting to find Luke, or wanting to become a Jedi. Oh, and he knows who left her on Jakku. And for some reason, Rey never thought to ask him about it. The parenting thing is another one of JJ's mystery boxes, but it honestly doesn't matter who they are. The only reason anyone cares who her parents are is because we hope it'll explain how she has all these force abilities with no training. It won't, and it can't. It would take a complete retcon of everything we've seen before in order for her powers to make sense. So the fact that her character even exists makes most of what we've seen in the other movies pointless.
You must complete the training.
To complete his training.
I've been trained in your Jedi arts.
Moments during his training.
Fear in his training.
You have been well trained.
I will train Anakin.
If you end your training now,
He will not be trained.
Complete your training.
Completing your training.
Training to become a Jedi is not an easy challenge.
Combat training.
Maybe JJ understands the Star Wars universe better than George Lucas, right? Maybe everything George established as foundational isn't even canon anymore. Rey has basically all the Force powers and skills, and there's no explanation how she got them. The downloading thing is something that we made up. It doesn't say that in the movies, and it's never been seen in any of the other movies. And because training, being taught, and apprenticeship are all heavily emphasized in every piece of Star Wars fiction, this movie is literally rewriting nearly everything that we've seen before in order for it to work. Just by the fact that Rey is a canon character, her knowledge and control over Force powers and lightsaber dueling with zero training means that every Jedi Academy, Master and Apprentice, Padawan, Holocron, Ancient Jedi Text, and Rule of Two are all suddenly irrelevant. Anakin's mom was basically impregnated by the Force, and he still had to train for over a decade. So what if Rey's father was Palpatine or Vader or Obi-Wan? So what? They all had to train and learn. Luke's dad is Darth Vader, and he still had to be trained. So having a powerful Force user as a parent doesn't mean anything. But JJ didn't write the character with an explanation. He just put a bunch of familiar things on screen and hoped that the next director would explain it. And that's why there'll never be an explanation that makes sense, because there was never one to begin with. JJ doesn't know how Rey got her powers, or who Rey's parents are, and he never did.
Without the Jedi, there can be no balance in the Force.
Balancing the Force is the most popular explanation to why she has all of these skills without explanation. The Force doesn't belong to the Jedi or the Sith. Force users are just people that have a stronger connection to the Force. The Force doesn't need people for it to be balanced. Even Yoda said that they might have misread the whole prophecy of the one who balances the Force thing. So the whole balancing the Force thing isn't even something that's confirmed in the Star Wars universe. We're never even told what this means. The Force giving Rey a bunch of powers doesn't mean she's going to choose to use them for good. Dooku and Anakin both started as Jedi, but turned to the dark side. So the Force can't stop people from choosing which path they want to take. If the Force being balanced was dependent upon how many Jedi or Sith there were, that would mean that one Sith is stronger than dozens of Jedi. Ever since Darth Bane 1,000 years ago, there's only been a few Sith at a time, the Rule of Two. In the prequels, there was an entire Jedi Academy and at least 100 active Jedi Masters, and only Sidious, Maul, and Dooku. So 3 Sith are enough to balance for 100 plus Jedi. Balance does mean equal on both sides, right? Where was the balance for all the years where Luke was the only Jedi, against Snoke, Kylo, and the Knights of Ren? Remember them? So now Luke and Rey are more powerful than like 7 Darkseid users? Why didn't the Force give powers to more people than just Rey? Can't we all just agree that these new movies weren't well thought out and made by people who don't really understand enough about Star Wars to make Star Wars movies? J.J. Abrams should have never been allowed to make this because he never wrote an actual story, and he violated the foundation of everything we've known about Star Wars.
What are stories but mystery boxes?